Hello, everyone. So, something you may have noticed lately in the anti-trans rhetoric, in the defense of harming trans people, one of their excuses, one of their reasons for doing this is to pit two groups of people against each other. These groups are trans people who need access to medical, legal, and social transition, and the other group is cis people, confused cis people who transition by accident. And, in reality, these two groups of people actually have similar interests and benefit from a lot of the same care, a lot of the same legal access, and a lot of the same social stigma reduction. But let's go ahead and play the game that they're playing. Let's look at what they're doing and see if it plays out number-wise. So everybody loves the classic, the trolley problem. And so let's say, here's the default trolley problem, something like this. The trolley is already on a course to harm 5 people. A greater number of people. And if you divert its course, you will have to act to make it harm less people. That's typically what's happening with the trolley problem, right? So let's look at statistics of these two different groups of people and make our own trolley problem for this exact situation. So the numbers are a little bit variable depending on the study. It can be a little bit difficult to get really consistent, concrete stats on such a stigmatized and scapegoated population, such as trans people. So I decided, though, that I'm going to be real generous to my opposition, though, because I'm a nice guy. And, I'll be nice to you guys. Like, I don't want to make you guys look incredibly ridiculous. You guys already do that to yourselves, but so I'm going to use a higher number that I have found for the confused cis people, and I'm going to use a little bit of a lower number for trans people. Okay, so let's get all of our actors on the screen, okay? We got the population of 1,000, and 2% of 1,000 is 20. We got 20 trans people. But out of those 20 trans people, 5% of them happen to be actually confused cis people. So we take one of these trans people, and there we have our trolley problem. And to make this metaphor as crystal clear as possible, what we are seeing here is the original path, the undiverted path that the trolley was going down, was this path where the conservatives had not yet gone down their transphobia arc, where they weren't like fixated on this new scapegoat minority. So, there were already several laws on the books that made trans people's lives much harder than they needed to be. But there's been an effort to pull this lever here to divert the course and harm more trans people. If we leave it be, we don't have to hurt all these trans people, but they just kind of want to, don't they? And so what we need to do here is to make sure that the incredible minority, this one person, does not get hurt. We're going to pull the lever to make sure that only the trans people are harmed, because we don't like trans people, I guess. Is that, how do we justify this? Something else I want you guys to think about is that when this anti-trans legislation bus it becomes activated and starts targeting transition, making it illegal in various ways, medically and socially and legally, when this happens, the chilling effect will reduce access to care for not just these people, but for this confused cis person as well. And like, how is that the case? Whenever somebody medically transitions, they may undergo some hormonal changes. They may have had a surgery to get rid of their gonads. They may have had a surgery that otherwise alters their body in a way that they end up later feeling uncomfortable with. And so they need good doctors who feel comfortable performing surgeries and prescribing hormones to people who are gender minorities. And just a little reminder, because I know that cis people and especially transphobes struggle a great deal with biology, especially sexual biology. Gonads are the testes or the ovaries. They are the part of the body that produces sex hormones. If your sex hormones are removed, then you are no longer really going to be producing enough sex hormones to keep a lot of processes in your body working healthfully and safely. And that could be early menopause for a great number of people. It can lead to mood problems. It can lead to osteoporosis, bone density problems earlier in life. And so, of course, having those sex hormones replaced by exogenous sex hormones is definitely a priority for people who will like to keep their bones. Just a reminder for the cis people in the audience. There's typically going to be a chilling effect where a lot of these doctors, these anti-trans legislations, they do not punish the consumer, the patients. They tend to target the doctors. A lot of them will give doctors felonies and remove their licenses. They can go to prison for many years if they accidentally give gender-affirming treatment to a trans person. And so, there's going to be a little bit more hesitation, and there's going to be less accessible and up-to-date research in order to help people who have sort of transitioned bodies like this person might have. So really, this person, even though they're not trans, transitioned people on the anti-transition legislation bus. So, if we don't pull the lever, it will hurt no one. But if we do pull the lever, we will hurt at least 2% of the population for no goddamn reason except for, I guess, conservatives need a new group of people to hate, especially a small and already disadvantaged community of people who tend to have mental health problems from the minority stress that we experience, from the discrimination we experience, which leads to our typically quite empty pockets. Yeah, a lot of us face employment discrimination, which is something a lot of people, for some reason, don't really like to bring up. It might be technically illegal in a good number of places, but it still happens a whole lot. So what I'm saying here is that trans people, gender minorities, make a really good target because it's just a little bit harder for us to fight back compared to a lot of people. Are they doing it because they hate trans people? I mean, maybe. I think a lot of them are pretty grossed out by us, or they think the Bible doesn't like it. I don't know what the fuck is going through a lot of these people's heads. But for strategically, people who are in power, if you're looking for another group to scapegoat to keep your party activated and interested and rooting for you, I think, if you're gonna make up a problem, this is a pretty good one to choose. Just find some incredibly marginalized people and get people excited about hurting them. And something I'm really tired about is being on the defense. I'm so incredibly tired of being on the defense as a trans person. The legislation we're fighting legislation that is attacking us, but why are we not securing our rights to sue our parents who forced us to undergo the wrong transition? Why aren't we doing that? It's one of those things where it's I think we're being a little bit too nice. And of course, like I said earlier, we are already an incredibly vulnerable minority population. incredibly disadvantaged, and a lot of us are broke as hell. I mean, even if we have a good job and make a decent income, a lot of us are going to have to pay out of pocket for surgeries because, I mean, for example, my girlfriend's health insurance, she doesn't pay for the insurance because it explicitly discriminates against trans people. It has a clause where it will not cover any trans affirming surgeries or even labs for hormones, aside from the hormones themselves, the prescriptions. You know, the pain of one confused cis person is not more important than the pain of 20 trans people, or hell, one trans person. In fact, in my opinion, if it was up to me, I think I would prioritize trans people's pain and distress, considering how hard shit is for us anyways. You know, a lot of these people, they'll swear up and down that they're not transphobic. Like, oh, I don't hate trans people. I'm just really worried about people who transition on accident. But it's like, you gotta find a way to justify this, because that's what you're doing. You're saying one cis person is more important than 20 trans people. And aside from that, like I said, this legislation will only hurt the confused cis people as well. If you care so much about that confused cis person, you will not legislate against their access to care. And I mean, if you're going to pretend that you're somebody who is worried about the pain and distress of people undergoing the wrong puberty and being forced to develop and keep the wrong body parts, then you should be incredibly pro-trans rights. I mean, for me personally, I'm a trans guy, and when I was a goddamn child, I was 12 years old, I was forced to undergo estrogenic puberty. I'm a man who was forced to develop breasts. I'm a man who was forced to have my hips widen permanently. It's a irreversible damage that I've gone through, you could say. And I'm goddamn 5'2". There's no surgery that's going to be able to bring me back from that. And again, I think I should be allowed to sue my parents for damages for that shit. I've undergone 2 surgeries, which, you know, several months of recovery time for that shit. I've undergone 3.5 years of testosterone injections, and I have spent more than $10,000 on only one of my surgeries. You know, I'm not even going to bring up how much it cost to go to court to change my name, how much, if my insurance was worse, how much it would fucking cost for my other surgery and for my testosterone and for the whole new wardrobe that I had to buy. And you know, I gotta be completely honest about something, which is that when it comes to people who transition by accident and then regret it, I kinda just don't care, you know? Like, do I want to make some legislation to try to prevent that from happening? Absolutely not. Like, you know, let people make mistakes. Y'all are always like concerned about the nanny state making your good decisions for you, right? And like, that's what you guys are asking for here, right? If you don't want to transition by accident, then just don't make such an incredibly difficult to make mistake. You know, like, not very many people do that. If you think that you're having some questions about it and you're not sure if you want to transition or not, go to fucking therapy, you know? Go fucking talk to somebody. It's not my fault that you don't understand yourself. You're gonna punish me for your misunderstanding of who you are? You think that's something I need to pay for? Because I don't think it is. You know, when it comes to like personal life regrets, there's actually a study in Poland that I'm looking at right now, and in the population of Polish parents between the ages of 18 and 40, 13.6% of the parents claimed that if they could once again make the decision, they would choose a life without children. So that's nearly 14% of those people regretted having kids. And so, like, are we supposed to also maybe, and in this questionnaire, in this study, they also tracked depressive symptoms and other things, which is like a lot of these people, they had kids when they later found out they didn't want to have kids, and it made them fucking miserable. Sucks to be them. So should we, like, outlaw parenthood? Should we ban parenthood to stop those 14% of people from becoming parents on accident? Do we need to have every person, before they make a baby, go into therapy, and if the therapist says, I think this person's gonna regret it, then they get, like, a mandatory abortion? You know, like, that's so goddamn silly. It's so silly. I say, let confused cis people go through the wrong puberty sometime. Like, man, does it suck for them? Yeah, I guess it probably fucking would. It sucked for me when I got forced to undergo the wrong puberty. It really sucked. I still deal with the consequences to this day. And I'd really, if I could sue my parents for it, for damages, I sure the fuck would. I absolutely would. Because, you know, fuck them. And so one of the reasons why I made this video is because I have a lot of frustration with trans people and our allies, people who advocate for us on behalf of us, who, whenever we're presented with this argument, this question of, like, what about the cis people who transition by accident? You know, like, fuck them. I don't care. Legislating against them will not help them. Legislating against them will hurt them. Aside from hurting 20 times the number of trans people, on top of that one detransitioner, it's going to hurt all of them. So why do you want to legislate that? I get really frustrated because, like, a lot of people, like I said, who try to argue on behalf of us, instead of pointing this out, they will simply say, oh, but there aren't very many of them. And that is true. There aren't very many of them. The 5% that I put in here, like I said, was very generous. A lot of the numbers that I see are actually between 0.3% and I think 3%. That's largely the regret rate that I have actually seen in a number of studies. But also, fuck cis people, actually, you know, fuck them. I just don't care. So, have you ever seen the movie X-Men that came out in the year 2000? I was thinking about this part I really liked, which is Magneto kidnaps an anti-mutant politician who's, you know, trying to get the mutant holocausting, the mutant genociding ball rolling. And, you know, Magneto as a mutant isn't a real big fan of that kind of behavior, that kind of legislation, as I am also not a fan of anti-trans legislation, genocidal trans legislation. So what Magneto does is he kidnaps the anti-mutant politician and he transitions him into a mutant, and then, well, you know, the process ends up unaliving the man, the politician, and, you know, I just gotta say, I like that, you know? You know, I just thought it was, an entertaining thing that happened in the movie. I rather liked it. And that is the message I will leave with you today. Goodbye, friends.